loft, how would you measure the loft of that driver?
Okay, well I can't measure lofts of drivers. I would use one of these devices here I use for measuring putter loft. So I would put that first of all, and really this only goes up to 6 degrees. So I would be putting that on the face and getting it in line with the front edge of the bottom of the sole there. But the thing is with these sole plates, they've had to change the shaping of the sole plate on the wood. See, notice how this wood is veneered back to like a triangular shape. And if you notice the new Titleist 915 drivers, they're even more shaped back than this one. So they start quite deep at the face here and they radiate back to quite a small area back here. And I was looking at Adam Scott setting up with his driver the other day, and the only part of the driver that was actually resting against the ground was the front edge. Whereas some of the old-fashioned drivers, we'd see the base of the driver sitting flat on the ground.
So what really the loft relates to is the shaft and not the sole.
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, so we really measure the loft. The relationship between the shaft and the loft is really the correct way to measure loft. So Dave, how would you measure loft on drivers?
I'd agree with you, because if we measure loft on the loft and line machine with an iron, we're putting the head in a position where it's obviously square to the target. Mm-hmm. And then we're measuring the angle of the shaft in relative to the angle of the face, aren't we?
Sure are.
So, you know, if we adjust a driver, if we rotate that shaft, if it has a different setting on it, we're changing lie angle, mm-hmm. and we're also changing open and closed face, but we're not really affecting the loft, are we?
Well, we're not affecting the loft relative to the shaft angle, no. But I guess that's a good discussion, because you know if you close the face on a driver
that way,
that's correct, and a driver loft is say 12 degrees. Let's say we close the loft by we close the face by 2 degrees.
Yeah.
When that face opens up to square, that then increases the loft to 14 degrees.
Right. So for every 1 degree closed, that puts 1 degree more loft on the club.
That's correct.
But that's dynamically, isn't it? That's not static measurement, is it?
No, that'd be static.
Okay. So by closing that in like so, that's increasing the loft of the club face.
It doesn't actually increase the loft, but it depends on how the driver's set. If the driver's set at 4 degrees closed, for instance, or 3 degrees closed, what you are measuring is what is that ball's loft angle relative to the face when it's square. Right. It's always got to be related back to when the face is square.
Yeah. So opening the face decreases the loft.
That's correct.
So for every 1 degree open, it would decrease the loft by approximately 1 degree.
That's right.
If you square it back up.
Yes. So what they're doing by having an adjustable shaft is opening and closing upright and flatter. That's so right. It is affecting the ball flight.
Yes, no doubt.
But is it changing the loft of the club?
Well, technically no, it's not changing the loft of the club.
No.
And people unfortunately relate to what they see, especially if you're a visual type person. Mm. So if you're playing with a golf club that looks closed to you, for instance, it's set up, what we've found in a large percentage of cases is people work it open. They work it open because it looks too close to them. Just like the putter that aims to the left, that person will tend to consciously or subconsciously react to that.
Mm.
Wouldn't the head open the shaft on the way through the physics of the golf swing as well?
Yeah, it would, because it's always going to tend to rotate back to its centre of gravity.
It's going to try and find the centre of gravity, that's exactly right.
That's right, and that's why an offset club, an offset being, by offset we're looking at the leading edge of the club being slightly in front of the leading edge of the club face here, that being an offset. Now what tends to happen with an offset club, the centre of gravity of the club here is always going to tend to rotate towards well, its centre of gravity, which is towards the shaft here. So that would be the best way, in my opinion, to build a driver for someone who needs offset or needs some help, you know, with hitting the ball further, influencing the ball further to the left.
So if somebody pushes or fades or slices, the offset might help them.
It might help them, yeah, because most people, when they're swinging the golf club, we actually, in most cases, want the club to be working from open to closed. So that's the club's natural movement. But what about the person that uses an offset and slices more?
That happens.
It does happen, yeah.
It also can happen too. Yeah.
So why that might happen is, let's say someone isn't working the face open to closed. So being with the offset driver, as that club's working from open to closed, you're going to be impacting the ball later in that release period. So that means with a non-offset driver, the face may still be open at impact, but with the offset driver, because you're hitting that ball a little later, it gives the face more chance to close. But the person that's working the opposite way, for instance,
Close to open.
let's say he's working his swing from closed to open, he may tend to slice that driver more. And that's where the public get really confused.
So would a draw, wouldn't a draw club face or a slightly closed club face on a natural club, that would move the centre of gravity actually slightly further forward?
Okay? Yep.
Which is actually, as we've discussed, the offset closes because it's set back a little bit. If we have a draw club face, well, it's actually going to be working in the opposite direction and probably really shouldn't do what they say that it does, which is draw on a draw club face.
Yeah, very true.
You know, so there's a big difference between a draw club face and an offset club face, isn't there?
Absolutely.
So how many people do we see when they have a bad slice, they set up on a tee with the club face really closed, but they still slice the ball? A lot, don't we?
We do.
They're saying basically, if I close the club face, I'll hit it straighter, but they still slice it.
Yep.
So that's having a negative effect, isn't it?
It can do. Yeah.
The golf club goes through changes when we make a swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly does. So the loft of a golf club really can't change, but the ball flight can be changed by adjusting the lie angle and face angle.
Correct.
Very interesting.